Lisa Chapman, thank you
Hello.
so much for joining us today.
Hello, Tim Graham. How are you?
Really good. Welcome to the Hotspotting podcast. Today
Thank
we're
you.
talking about interviews with the 1%. So they say, the ATO says that 72% of Australian investors only own one investment property. They say that if you've got 5 or more, you're in the 1%. Now, you've got a really interesting property journey, and I can't wait to dive into that today. But before we get to the really fun stuff in the real estate, tell us a bit about Lisa. Where did you grow up? What's your story?
What's my story? So I'm Tasmanian, but luckily the scars have healed, so
Yes.
hardly anyone sees that now. So grew up in Tasmania and started my career there. I started working as a copywriter in an ad agency at a young age, and then I moved into television and absolutely loved TV and just had an amazing job down there. As a result, I was able to buy my first property pretty young. I think I was 22 or something.
Yeah, wow.
And bought my first little 2-bedroom house in South Hobart. It ended up being just pure by luck. I'd love to say it was by design, but it was right next to a private hospital.
Oh, wow.
And I don't own it today still, which is probably going to be your next question.
Yeah.
But if I did, it would be an amazing Airbnb for doctors, medical professionals and people visiting. So location-wise, it was great.
That might come into the questions about strategy shortly, but let's start with, what did you pay for it? You've said you don't own it anymore, but how did you come about actually buying it as well? Was it? I want to know the process. Did you just see it was before realestate.com?
Yes.
Did you go along and just see it at an auction? How did you buy the property?
I think I saw it advertised in the Mercury.
The Mercury.
Which is the,
there you go.
well-known newspaper of Hobart. So it was $65,000, I think, from memory. And I had the deposit. I think I had like 25% deposit, and I was able to get a loan and, just bought it.
So what were interest rates back then?
I've got no idea.
Yeah. Just thinking, do you remember at the time, was it cost you money out of pocket? Was it putting money in your pocket?
Well, I lived in it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So it was my
Owner-occupier,
first, it was sort of owner-occupier, and then my sister moved in and kind of was, it was a really great little house. It was only sort of 2 kilometres out of the centre of Hobart as well. So it was just a great little kind of starter house, I guess. Did a bit of renovation, put a deck on the back, etc., improved it a little bit. And about 18 months later, I then bought my second property, which was an investment property in West Hobart. Again, another sort of inner city suburb. It was a 3-bedroom house with a 1-bedroom flat underneath. So again, I kind of intrinsically knew that was a good investment and that it had 2 streams of income as an investment property. And as a result, I was able to borrow, a bit more because it had that guaranteed income stream. So that was my second property, and that was went pretty well as well.
So where did the interest in real estate come from? It was one thing to buy your own home and you're on good income, you've got a good job and some security and something over your head, but to go and buy an investment property, yes? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah? So you bought an investment property. Where did that stem from? Like, did your parents, were they investors?
Look, pretty much the opposite. My family's very conservative. No one in my family's ever had investment property. It was just like a really foreign concept. It was you save up, you build your house, and that's what you have for life. And my parents had public service jobs, the same job for their
epitome
entire...
of safety. Yeah.
Very safety conscious and very you save up, until you can buy something. And they never had credit cards or anything like that.
This sounds like a rich dad's, poor dad type of story.
It was kind of, so there was no background. I think I just had a fire and I was really independent from a young age. I left home at 17 and I just have been really independent kind of, for a long time. And I guess I just believed in myself and thought it was a good idea and just went for it.
You can't pinpoint what caused that? Where does it come from?
No, I think I just loved, I loved growing up, when houses were being built. I used to go and play on them and walk on the floorboards before, they were down. And I think I just always had this interest in property without really knowing where it came from or what sparked it.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but being in media, you're surrounded by probably aspirational people
I guess
as well.
So. And I think I've always been a good saver. I was never somebody, and still I'm not someone who money slips through their fingers. It's kind of, spend whatever I want to, but save the rest. Yeah. So I think I've always had that save up for the things that you really want.
Okay, so we've gone to the one in West Hobart.
Yes.
What was the next step?
So after that, I kind of felt career-wise that Tasmania had really, I'd exhausted all the options of things that I wanted to do, and there wasn't really a better or a higher-paying job for me there, I didn't feel. So my best friend and I moved to Melbourne. where the media landscape with television, etc., was much bigger, and so we moved over here and rented for about 12 months, and then I bought my first apartment in Melbourne in Malvern.
Okay. You still got the properties in Hobart at this time?
No. Yes, I still had them there. Then I bought the Malvern one, so I think I had three at that stage.
Okay.
And then I moved into that apartment. And then I bought another little investment apartment in Balaclava. So I think.
What age are we at this point?
About 30.
Yeah, wow.
30-ish.
Okay. So were you using cash for deposits as you were doing it, or were you leveraging?
I was using cash. I think, just trying to remember, I think for the Balaclava apartment, that was just a ridiculous price. I think it was $75,000.
Yeah,
it was
wow.
like a little 2-bedroom flat. And I think it was the last one, a developer had done a refurbishment of a block, and this was kind of the last one they were trying to get rid of, and he was desperate to get out, and it was just right timing, and I think I just made an offer, and he was like, okay, I'll take it.
Oh, wow.
So
right time, right place.
Right time, right place. So they were just set and forget, really. Just they were rented, always had property managers, and they were pretty easy.
As you've gone along from property one, owner occupier, and then moved up to now 4 properties, what did you learn along the way by that stage? Were you getting better at it?
I think I was getting better at it, and I realised the importance of a good property manager who managed really closely, had a great interest, and always maximising your rent and looking for good tenants, not perhaps going for the first one, but really doing some investigation. Are they stable? What's their income? Are they going to? Because I realise obviously the more you turn over, you might lose out on $5 a week, but it's empty for a month. So I think I kind of learnt a little bit about that, the importance of a good tenant and looking after them.
So landed in Melbourne. What type of work were you doing in the media at that time?
Working for a film and television production company. And then I moved into ACP and started working for Women's Weekly.
Yeah, wow. Okay, and the next step with your property, where do we go from here?
Then I decided to sort of move a little bit closer in, and then I bought my first off-the-plan property, which was a townhouse in Paran. And again, it was kind of off-the-plan was a new thing. I bought it at a point where I could personalise it, so I was able to choose all the tiles and the floor and
for investment this time? Or
no, that was to live in.
To live in, okay.
And I bought it for me, and I had cream carpet with little pink flowers on it. I painted the whole thing yellow, and the outside of the house was pink. Yeah. So it's kind of its era. It wasn't. It wasn't. It was basically designed for me at that stage. So that was amazingly located. It was just off Chapel Street, and it was 100 metres or so from the station, and surrounded by bars and restaurants. So again, location-wise, it was really amazing. So that was I lived there for a couple of years.
So we're now at property number 5. We still haven't heard any bad stories. Like what?
So I sold. I can't remember the exact time. I think I actually sold one of the Hobart properties to fund the Paran purchase, because I was kind of stepping up in terms of
purchase
price,
and what have the Hobart properties done throughout this time as well? Are we seeing much growth in them? Because you're saying you're using cash savings a lot of time for deposits. So were you seeing growth in performance in these properties?
I was. So the one in West Hobart was, I never did anything kind of, renovation wise. So it was pretty basic. So that did increase. And I mean, now I think I paid about $100,000 for that, and it's probably worth about $800 now.
Oh, wow.
The Malvern one I paid $136,000 for. Then I sold that, I think, in 2008 for about $350,000. So I was kind of doing a little bit of selling. I'd have to go back through all my 20 years of tax records to find out when I bought and sold everything. But it was always kind of comfortably within my means. I never really overextended, and I refinanced a couple of times and took equity out of properties that I had to buy the next one. So I think I probably thought of it as stepping stones.
Did you have throughout this time any sort of aspiration of how many you wanted to get to? Were you considering yourself a property investor at that time, or was it just...
Look, not really. I sort of never really told anyone about it. It was sort of just, I guess, something that I did because it felt good, and I just felt like it was a very secure And it was
still single at this time as well?
I was still single, at this stage. It was all kind of I suppose
Building
I
your
just
nest egg and your security?
Yeah, I think I just had to back myself, and I'd always just believed in property. I've never been a share market investor. I know a lot of people argue that can be a better return, but for me, it never felt as tangible
Like something
as
you can
property. Yeah, or you can walk past or drive past or see online.
We've had the owner-occupier again in Paran.
Yep.
How long did you stay there?
So I was there for a couple of years. I met my now husband at that point, and after
Did he paint the place?
no, but he wasn't. He never really loved the bright yellow and the external pink. So yeah, he moved in, and then we were there a couple of years, and then I bought another sort of main PPR in Brighton, and that was a sort of a larger townhouse, and then we moved there and got married, and yeah.
And work-wise, where are we at by this stage?
Had then moved into public relations. So I had started working for a sports marketing company, which is really ironic because I had no interest in sport, but I love PR. And so it was kind of the premier sports marketing, sports PR agency of Australia at that time, and they had amazing clients like Australian Olympic Committee and Commonwealth Games and Australia Post and AFL and Adidas and all that. So I managed a lot of big brands. I managed Adidas's PR nationally, and AFL and Olympics. I got to go to 2 Olympic Games.
Oh, wow.
And kind of meet basically the world's gold medalists. So
wow.
that was a lot
Amazing.
A lot of fun.
You said that you bought Paran off market. I know.
Yep.
Sticking with the theme of property, you ended up working for, I believe at the time, it was the tallest residential building, at least in the world, in selling the Eureka Tower. So
that's
was
right.
that your first pivot into real estate in work?
Yes, it was. So I kind of did a few different things. I ended up running sort of pretty large consumer public relations agency, and I got headhunted a few times. And then I was working in a big advertising agency, and that agency had pitched for the launch of Eureka Tower. And I was involved in that pitch process, and the agency didn't get awarded that contract, but the developer said, "We really love what the PR campaign is. Will you come and work for us?" And I said, "Well, I'm a consultant, so yes, I can." So I ended up working with the developers of Eureka for about 3 years or so, and that was amazing. It was just a brilliant project to work on, and was able to achieve a lot of kind of national and global publicity.
Yeah, amazing. So for those listening at home that may not know, the Eureka Tower is an iconic building in Melbourne, was at the time the tallest in the world, but I believe they had the Eureka Skydeck, which is still today an iconic tourist destination. So you helped with the promotion on that too?
I did, yeah. Worked on the launch of that as well, and again that was kind of a world first. They had that jutting out.
You're shivering as you're saying it. It sounds like you've been on it yourself.
So that was a great experience as well, and that came from recommendation from Eureka.
Yeah, it was a huge undertaking at the time. I recall it going up. My brother actually helped with the crane on the top of it, funnily enough.
Right, I've been in that crane,
and
really? I actually came up.
You're still here to tell the story, so it wasn't my brother at the time.
It was Daniel Grollo came up with this idea as a charity. Prize for, I don't think, a hospital fundraising thing, and it was a ride in the crane bucket to go round the top as Eureka was getting to its sort of finalisation, and somebody paid X thousands of dollars to do that, and I was, because I was doing all the PR, I was up there on the roof, and we had all TV cameras and press, etc., and so they did the thing they'd paid for, and everyone lived and
everyone
was shaking and got off. And the crane operator said to me, "Oh, do you want to have a go?" And being Mark went, "Okay, why not?" So I got in the crane bucket with a photographer, I think from The Age at the time, who was literally terrified. I was literally shaking. And I was going, "It'll be okay, it'll be okay." And we got in and we spun around this
Amazing.
thing. So I remember going home and saying, "I guess what I did today at work." So that was fun.
Amazing. So coming back to your property journey, we're now well and truly immersed in Melbourne and great career and everything. what stage did your property journey change? I know you'd been obviously buying a few units along the way. You've now gone into some bigger developments, or at least doing property development.
Decided, we needed a property. We had a daughter at that stage, was looking for a bit more space, and so I decided to have a go at development and took on a dual occupancy project. Again, had never done that before or really knew anyone had done it.
Was that here in Melbourne as well?
That was in Melbourne. Okay. So that was in Bayside, Melbourne. But kind of researched what I needed to do, what size block, who could build it, what the costs were, etc. And so I bought the first block of land 2018 and turned into a dual occupancy, and really had to, again, learn everything. I just didn't know how to subdivide. I didn't know what specialist, advice I needed. So I had to figure it all out, and made a few mistakes along the way and had a few arguments with people, but got there in the end, and that it all worked out, really, really well. And then that the larger of that larger property became our PPR, and then I sold the other 3-bedroom unit, and the proceeds from that pretty much paid for the whole purchase of the land. Amazing. So it worked out. It worked out really well. So I was able to then kind of pay all that off.
Amazing. So by this stage, you pretty much wiped out all debt, an owner-occupier at least.
Look, yes. As an owner-occupier, I still had a lot of other, investment debt. But
what age were you at this stage, Lisa? 'Cause that's a pretty powerful position to be in.
I don't know, late 30s,
I guess. Late 30s, amazing.
So that was my first development, and figured it all out. It was stressful at the time. I wouldn't say it was easy, because
it can be stressful building a house at the best of times, let alone doing a development like that. So you taught yourself how to do this as well?
Pretty much, yeah. And
amazing.
I'm a big reader, so I'm a big researcher, and I'm not afraid to ask for help. So I would, say, you're a surveyor, can you advise me on this, or what's the best way of doing that? And I had that stage, we had very good accountants who were also property investors. So that kind of my next project I did. They sort of advised me what structures to set up and what family trust.
We often say at Hotspotting, you should build your team before you build your portfolio. So I'm interested to know, how do you select those people? How do you select the trades? How do you select the accountants? What is it that resonates with you when you're selecting those people?
So our accountant came from a personal recommendation from a really good friend of mine and they had looked after my friend's property portfolio. So that was really recommendation, and then going and meeting with them and being satisfied that we could communicate well.
All right, so we've done a couple of property developments by this stage. Mm-hmm. Tell me, you've moved into a unique part of the market here in Victoria called Residential 1B. Could you explain how did that come about? Because I know even now in 2024, it's still not known by a lot of investors, especially outside of Victoria. Mm. How did you come by it, and then why? What intrigued you to do something like this?
I came across it through doing a PR campaign, actually. It was a kind of tech platform, and it was one of the things that they were involved with. So that's how I came across it, and I thought it was quite intriguing because, as you said, no one really knew much about it.
Could you explain what it is as well?
So 1B is basically a residential-sized block, but with up to 9 studios on that one block.
Yeah, well. So and you don't need a planning permit for that either.
Don't need a planning permit.
Amazing. Okay, and what was it that resonated with you to actually go and build one of these?
I think I just felt that it had really good investment potential, and I guess having reasonably successfully completed a first development, I had some confidence to perhaps go with that. I got a lot of advice about exactly what criteria was required to make that sort of project successful, and it's very specific with location, block size, terrain, surrounding
it's worth
infrastructure.
noting as well that they are all selling these individually either. It remains on one title.
Yes,
and it's typically a boarding house is another way that people refer to it. Yep. That's got to come with some headaches too, Lisa. Do you have any?
Look, again, I spoke to a lot of people. The building process was really very fraught, and I went through 3 builders. So
throughout the construction?
So through the process of doing my first one, I was recommended to a builder, went through the design contract period, and actually got to contract signing day. All the designs had been approved, the budget had been approved, was all ready to go. And I said, can you please send the contract to me? And they said, oh, no, we can't send it to you. You have to come down to our office and sign it. And I said, well, no, I'd like you to send it to me.
Review it.
I had, I won't mention the builder that built my dual lock, but I went through both contracts
line by line?
Line by line. And I think from memory there were 61 mistakes.
Oh, wow.
In those two contracts, and 59 of them were in the builder's favour, not in mine.
Well, that's the thing. And when you're doing something quite bespoke, these contracts are created on the fly.
Yeah.
Whereas you build with a mainstream builder, you're getting a HOA contract. There's not a lot that's in there, but even those ones are always in favour of the builder.
And that was a mainstream builder.
Yeah, wow.
And so there are just little things, like you've got to, if I would advise someone doing this, you have to read everything. And there were things like, you'd make the changes to the design, we'd take out those 3 windows and put that one in, and they would charge you for the extra window but not credit you for the 3 that you'd taken out. So things, and, change the flooring.
I think there's a real lesson in this. So you should be reading all the fine print.
61 or something, I remember. And so I was pretty attuned to reading contracts. And so when this builder said, oh, no, we can't send it to you, it's intellectual property. And I'm like, but it's my contract. Yeah. And anyway, I went down there, and the builder was walking around in shorts. The meeting was in his house because somehow their office had shut down, walking around his house in board shorts and chain smoking. And it was really a very strange atmosphere, and I just felt like it wasn't professional. And then they wanted me to sign on the spot, and I just said, no, sorry, I'm cancelling the contract and I'm walking away. Gut instinct. So I basically sacked them, and then I had to start again. And then I was recommended to another builder who I knew and had worked with, had consulted to, so I knew them quite well. They had never built anything like this, so I was in the position of really having to teach them, this is what it is, this is what you can do, because it was so new. They'd never built anything like that, even though they'd built childcare centres and other commercial properties. So that was a bit of a learning that I felt I had to, teach them, which probably wasn't the way it should have been. But anyway, we got to
in a lot of cases, you're dealing with people that you've got more experience than them by this stage.
Yes, because I'd sort of educated myself on having decided to go down this route. And anyway, we got to a design that was all costed. Again, that was ready to go. And that company went into liquidation a week before we were supposed to start. Luckily, I had developed this really great relationship with the building designer, and he had been stalling getting the contract to me to the point where I was getting really aggravated and saying, why have this is taking weeks? Why? What's the delay? And in the end, he was protecting me by not having me sign it because he knew something was wrong. So power of being nice to people, I think, and having great working relationships, that saved me a lot of money because I would have lost everything if it had been a few days different. So they went to liquidation. Then I had to start again, and I had to then try and find the third builder. And then I went through a tender process, basically. Again, I just figured all this out myself and thought, okay, I'm going to get half a dozen builders to quote. So I put a brief together and got a whole lot of local builders to submit quotations, and met with them all and chose one, and it was amazing. It was just the most seamless experience.
You've got choice then as well.
Got choice. And this particular builder didn't build a lot. I mainly just did it for his own family company, but just so helpful and so knowledgeable. And we just had even 6 years later, I can ring him and say, Simon, got a question. Those floors, and it was really I think it was meant to be.
Yeah, it's amazing when you're talking with professionals that are happy to give advice or give insights at least without having to have a pen and paper, because if people are more outgoing and willing to give that information, you're more likely to work with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I did, I mean, this might be a tip for people, I said to him, can I have the names of the 3 of your most recent clients so I can ring them?
It's a great question.
And he said, sure, gave them to me. And I remember particularly one guy said, I'll kill you if you ever tell Simon I said this, but I will never work with anyone else again but him because he's so good.
Wow.
So that was,
There you go.
that
That's
was
the
a pretty
testament
good,
you want.
and I would say the same thing.
All right, so I've got a couple more questions on property, and then I want to talk to talk about what you're doing now because
Sure.
you've had a bit of a pivot, but you have, and it's an exciting space. So before we get there, though, a couple of questions on property. With your portfolio, it sounds like you went from Hobart to Melbourne. Have you explored outside of Victoria since?
I haven't actually.
Interesting.
I guess I've just felt like I'm more familiar with here. I've toyed with the various Brisbane's hot and Perth's hot and Sydney, but I think I like that feeling of being able to drive past it and be hands on. So I haven't explored outside.
So
Victoria.
it's nice to be able to drive past your house and wave to it, even though it'll never wave back. Okay. So firstly, I want to say your story so far has been inspirational, and not just for women, but I think for everybody who's learning or listening to this podcast, that you didn't have the bank of mum and dad. You taught yourself how to get here, and I think it's really an inspirational story. So I really appreciate you coming on and telling it. But what has it done for you, right? So it's brought you to a position in life now where you're able to make a really great decision for your family when COVID hit. Tell us about it.
So COVID, like for many people, brought about a period of reflection and what do I really want to do? And
other than Uber Eats and Netflix.
yeah, that can only last so long. And I just felt like it was time to kind of move away. It's pretty running consultancies and running marketing and PR agencies is pretty relentless and stressful. And I really just kind of had a big think about what would make me happy, what would I want to do, and so having passive income streams allowed me that space to be able to really think about what would I like to do next, I guess. So that was one kind of period of time to just have a little bit of breathing space. And secondly, I made a decision to do a bit of a family adventure. So moved the whole family to Bali for 7 months to live last year. So again, it was, that it allowed me that freedom to kind of say, let's do this. That was also prompted by 2 unexpected health, things that happened with people in the family, and I just kept the phrase that kept going through my mind is "if not now, when?"
Yeah, that's
and
right.
so I just made it happen. I also took on a renovation of my house 3 months before, which nearly killed me, and then we decided to move countries and rent the house and find a villa and put my daughter in another school. So yeah, we moved to Bali last year and put my daughter in a micro school in the middle of the jungle. We had 18 kids, all from all around the world. And because she was in year 10, I sort of felt like we had this window before she started VCE that if we needed to, we could sacrifice 6 months of education for, a family adventure. And so I didn't have very high expectations. As I said, it was a little micro school. There were no walls. The crazy Italian owner brought her 7 pug dogs to school every day, and she had a pet pig. It was really different. However, it was the best schooling my daughter's ever had. So she came from this private Catholic girls' school, which is very sort of buttoned up and proper, and to this school, and the care and the attention to detail, and she thrived.
What an experience.
It was amazing. Yeah. And she was getting A's and B's for the first
time.
No,
there'd be international students as well, not all
Australian? Russia, America, UK, Singapore, and 2 twin boys her age from Melbourne. And their family was doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, you can't holiday overseas without running into
so she
from
became sort of best mates with these 2 boys, though she, as she said to me, I'm a bit sick of the teenage boy energy, Mum.
Yeah, okay.
But it was amazing. We did lots of things and we travelled and we ate out and we had a fantastic villa, and because I had property, really good property managers, they could manage everything, and I could just, business as usual, really, just couple of hours difference.
Amazing. So
yeah.
you've returned now and you've got a new business, which is Eden Yarra Valley. Tell me about Eden
Yes,
Yarra
so total pivot. So I'm now, I suppose, a bit of a property entrepreneur, is, I guess, is a title. So Eden Yarra Valley is a luxury accommodation in the heart of the Yarra Valley. It sleeps up to 30 guests, and it's on 2 acres of sort of botanical gardens. The way it kind of came about was interesting. In the middle of COVID, when everything was locked down, my best friend and I saw this property on the market. I wasn't looking to get into accommodation. I wasn't looking to buy property in the Yarra Valley. She said, come and have a look at this. And we, between, lockdowns and things, we sneakily had a look at it and just decided to buy it. And it was a rundown ex-bed and breakfast. And, it really neglected. The garden was a mess. There were 100 possums living in the ceiling. It was really unloved and neglected. Bought it, did a massive renovation, sort of top to toe, inside out, turned it into a 10-bedroom, 9-bathroom estate. It's got a pool and a games room and fully equipped bar, and we've just opened a function centre or dining room function centre. So
target market sort of weddings and...
In the Yarra Valley, as you would probably know, it's the wedding and wine capital of Victoria. So very, very popular. It's the #1 wedding destination in Victoria. So lots and lots of brides. We're surrounded by 15, 20 wineries and wedding venues. And there's virtually no large group accommodation in the Yarra Valley.
Yeah, it's hard to believe.
Yeah, lots of bed and breakfast and 2 or 3,
everyone ends up spread out. Yeah.
So our vision was to create something where a bride could get ready in a beautiful suite, and all the bridal party and the groom's family and the bride's family could all stay together and have pretty much like a 48-hour wedding staycation. So was the vision, and that's pretty much how it's turned out. So big part of our target market is wedding stays, and we also do a handful of micro weddings as well on site, because we've got lovely gardens and things. The second market is milestone birthdays. So we do a huge amount of 30, 40, 50, right up to 80s, and our biggest market is probably 80th birthdays, because we had a lot of multi-generation families, and we did a beautiful 90th a few weeks ago of people that came from all around the world for their matriarch's 90th birthday. So lots of milestone birthdays and celebrations and anniversaries, second market, and then the third is the corporate market. So we do a lot of leadership retreats, corporate retreats, board meetings.
With that, I have to say,
keeps you busy.
It keeps you very busy. I was going to say, if you throw the same attention to your property investment as you do to this business, I have absolutely no doubt it'll be a raging success. So, Lisa, we're going to finish up with one question, and that is for anybody out there who's listening, and they might be either never bought real estate, they've got their own owner-occupier, but maybe have never invested, or maybe they're just starting out, and we all know how hard it can be to get into the market. What advice do you have for them?
Look, I think trust yourself and back yourself. And if I ever meet, particularly young women, I just say believe in yourself and you can do it. Look, I was always a good saver, and I guess I just have been independent from a young age. And educate yourself, and don't be afraid to ask people for advice. Whenever I've encountered
and don't ask once. If you don't find the answer you're after, keep on looking.
People are really willing to help you. If you ask them and say, I know you're an expert in this, would you mind giving me 5 minutes to explain this to me? And people like sharing advice, and I think generally people are generous, and believe in yourself and do it. Get the right advice, and it's just it gives you so much freedom, and I think just go for it.
Amazing. Lisa Chapman, thank you so much for sharing your personal story. I think there's a lot of people who listen to this will take a lot of inspiration from it.
Thank you,
Great
Tim.
to see you again.
You too.